Chapter 1. The First 9/11. September 11th, 1857. Mountain Meadows, Utah. The morning sun crept over the valley, casting a golden hue over the dry grasslands and scattered wagons. It should have been a peaceful dawn, a sign of hope after 5 days of terror. But the men, women, and children of the Baker-Fancher wagon train weren't free. They were trapped, surrounded by unseen enemies, watching, waiting, disguised. For days, gunfire had echoed across the land, bullets tearing through canvas, shattering wood, and embedding themselves in the bodies of innocents. The attackers were ruthless, striking under the cover of darkness and retreating before they could be seen. The emigrants whispered among themselves, "Indians? Bandits?" Something wasn't right. Then, a sign of hope. A group of white men appeared, wearing familiar clothing, carrying weapons like those of the settlers themselves. They approached under a flag of truce, voices calm, reassuring. "Hand over your weapons. The fighting will stop. We will escort you to safety." Desperate for survival, the immigrants obeyed. The men were separated from their wives, their children, and led away in small groups. Then the order came. Do your duty. Gunshots rang out. Throats were slit. Women and children, abandoned to their fate, screamed as their bodies were torn apart by blades and bullets. The massacre was complete. When the dust settled, only 17 children were left alive. Young enough to forget, young enough to be reprogrammed into the very community that had murdered their families. But the truth? Buried, rewritten, erased. Blame was cast on the Native Americans, the same way future governments would cast blame on outside forces for atrocities of their own making. But the truth was undeniable. The Mormon militia, acting under orders from their own leaders, had disguised themselves as Indians, carried out the slaughter, and then framed the very people they impersonated. Aha! A false flag. A deception. A blueprint. 144 years later, history would repeat itself. From 1857 the same playbook. This wasn't just a massacre, it was psychological warfare. The victims were not just murdered, they were tricked into believing their killers were their saviors. This tactic, manipulating perception, creating an enemy, and shifting blame, has been used by those in power for centuries. But few events in American history mirror it as clearly as the attacks on September 11th, 2001. Once again, the official story was written before the dust had even settled. Once again, the real culprits remained hidden behind layers of lies. And once again, a false enemy was blamed, used to justify war, destruction, and a loss of freedom. The Mountain Meadows Massacre was the first 9/11, a blueprint for deception that would be perfected over time. But to understand